Just saying I'm live. No data. So somehow I've gotten stream health. Let's go end stream, end this, and new stream, and go to let's see. Okay. Broadcasting. Okay. Let's go here. And it's done. So I've got an excellent connection, so must be, yeah, there we go. So just double check here. Okay, so I can go out of here and just, sorry about that, I had to cough something up there. I don't know what it was. A lung. Used to smoke. Thank goodness I quit. I was back and forth smoking all the time. It's unbelievable. But anyway, if anybody was watching Reacher, that was, I guess, I'm not advertising for Reacher, but if you're on Prime, you can get that on your TV. And I got Apple, Reacher, I got that. I was watching the dogs. For some reason, I couldn't get on there with my account the other day. It's like, wasn't working. But I wanted to see that Slow Dogs. That's a good series, kind of a British kind of thing, but James Bond kind of, but kind of. And then, of course, you've got YouTube. You can buy movies on here on YouTube, and I've only got one because usually what I do is I have a family plan with Apple, and I have it hooked up to the TV upstairs through a Roku. So I have the Roku, and that has channels. Anyway, so, but yeah, this is another thing I did on Firefly, a couple of wolves. I did a picture years ago of these are birch trees, and you'll find them a lot. If you're in Montana and you're through a lot of, like, they like the really thick parts of, or wherever you're at in the forest, they really like the thick brush like that, because they can pick off rabbits and stuff like that pretty quickly. But smaller critters, squirrels. Oh, I like squirrels. So, put our voices on.
I like squirrels. I like squirrels. Do I sound like a pretty little girl?
Go here and
Easy peasy lemon squeezy. I hope all you peapods are having a wonderful day. And remember, have a happy peapod day.
so yeah, I've got music with I got music and sound effects and stuff with YouTube, and then I have the same thing with my Stream Deck. They give you can put your things on there. The one thing I haven't been able to master or figure out, and it's probably costing me a lot of subscribers and stuff like that, is I don't have the ability to know how to have Discord up while I am streaming. So they had a really good deal on these headphones and one of those small Stream Deck things on Canadian. It was like $5.48, and then shipping, you got to pay for shipping. But and then yeah, with XSplit VCam, you can switch all this around. You can actually hook it up to your phone and stuff. But here's some fireworks for the new year, and here, if you want a good view from the moon, here we got a little picture of the Earth there. Here's a kind of a fake thing there. And we got another thing there. I changed this so it's not a smooth roll. Oh yeah, here's One Republic background, or Republic of Gamers. One Republic. It's an Australian band, really good pop band too. And this is and if you're looking for backgrounds, you should try out Pexel, P-E-X-E-L. They're a really good spot. Yeah, the guys liked that. So, and this is my team of experts behind me. And that's the building outside. Here they're working on the next phase of AI. That's top secret. I better not show you that. Let's go to my boardroom. There we go. So anyway, quantum entanglement. So we are thinking of possibly being able to take an atom from one point and it will remember where that atom is in the quantum entanglement computer, and it will take and put, you can send the atom anywhere you want to, and the atom will go to that, but with the quantum entanglement, it'll remember where that atom was and be able to basically instantly bring it back. Time travel, I don't know if we're quite that ready, but you never know. Have enough minds working on something, you can always figure these things out. So I know with Texas had a heck of a time with their power. All their power lines went down and stuff like that a few years back. It's been a while now, because Tesla's down there now with his SpaceX and with his Tesla factory down there. But the governor, I was telling him that these small reactors, these really small reactors, they can basically, Taylor Wilson, he was the guy that he invented low radioactive seeds that you could put in to help for breast cancer and these other things until the thing had gone away. So I think that's what they do for the brain thing. They put you in one of those electron magnet MRI agent, and then they put a little thing in there and then shrink the cancer, the brain cancer that's in there. It's been known to be a bit of a cure for some people, and I really think we should just step back and let AI kind of. I know we got to keep not have all the. I don't think the AIs would be dumb enough to attack people, but you don't know. I wouldn't think so. Will Smith probably gave us a big scare with iRobot, right? So you need a Will Smith. I think Will Smith, I think he was on that Slow Horses. I think it's the same. And then the show on there with Slow Horses, they have Mick Jagger was singing the login thing. It was pretty cool. So yeah, so if anybody has anything to add to that, you're quite welcome to. Today we're celebrating our Fox Days. Our little, I guess the wolves are hunting their foxes in their holes. But then so I was going to do a test of the stream. I get about 920 megabytes up and 920 megabytes down. So my MacBook that I just got, it would only do about 450 or 500 on the Wi-Fi. It's got the Wi-Fi 6, as well as this computer. But to get the high speed, I had to add a Ethernet adapter to it. but it actually went out. Somehow, I don't know how it got knocked off there. It wasn't working correctly. But, so, Eve, I know Eve. Eve is kind of cool.
Hi, welcome to our YouTube-friendly version of NTD News. What you'll see here is only the content that YouTube allows. For our complete uncensored broadcast, head on over to ntd.com or theepictimes.com/epictv. See you there.
This is NTD Evening News. Live from our NTD Global Headquarters in New York City, here is Tiffany Meyer.
Hey, Tiffany.
Good evening and thank you for joining us tonight. A win for former President Trump as the Michigan Supreme Court keeps him on the ballot in the key battleground state. At the same time, Special Counsel Jack Smith aims to narrow Trump's defense in the January 6 case. Melina Weisskopf has the updates.
Special Counsel Jack Smith is trying to limit evidence and arguments that Trump can make before the jury in his federal trial related to the January 6th related case. Prosecutors claim that Trump has tried to spread irrelevant disinformation and will try to politicize the trial. Specifically, Smith is concerned that Trump will distract the jury by making claims of political prosecution, such as raising the question as to whether or not this legal case against Trump was launched in coordination with the Biden administration, or the question of whether or not there were undercover agents present at the Capitol on January 6th, or questions of alleged foreign interference in the 2020 presidential election. All of these topics, Jack Smith wants to be off limits at that trial, which is what he's asking of the DC judge. Meanwhile, proceedings in this case are currently on hold because of an appeal over the question of whether or not presidential immunity applies in this case. Meanwhile, Michigan Supreme Court today did rule that Trump can stay on the ballot in that state, rejecting an appeal to try to disqualify him. Michigan's court stated that they would not review the question as to whether or not Trump should be disqualified based on accusations that he incited an insurrection. This is the exact opposite from that Colorado ruling, which will likely go to the Supreme Court. We can expect to see several other rulings on this issue coming out over the coming weeks and months as there are challenges to Trump's candidacy in several other states. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
Well, California followed Colorado's lead in banning former President Trump from the state's ballot. And Governor Gavin Newsom says such efforts could serve as a distraction. NTD's Eileen Eng has more.
California Governor Gavin Newsom reacted to efforts from a top state official trying to bar former President Donald Trump from the state's ballot. This comes after the Colorado Supreme Court ruled that Trump should be dismissed from the Colorado ballot for the 2024 election. They say he violated Section 3 of the U.S. Constitution's 14th Amendment. A majority of justices on the state court ruled that he engaged in an insurrection or rebellion against the United States under their reading of the provision. The decision has triggered more efforts across the United States, including in California, to disqualify Trump from appearing on ballots in 2024. But in a statement issued on December 22nd, Newsom told his fellow Democrats that he believes that in California, we defeat candidates at the polls, referring to lawsuits against President Trump, and that everything else is a political distraction. Lieutenant Governor Eleni Kounalakis, who is running for governor as a Democrat in 2026, sent a letter to Secretary of State Shirley Weber urging her to find legal ways to remove Trump's name from the state's ballot. The letter reads, "Based on the Colorado Supreme Court's ruling, I urge you to explore every legal option to remove former President Donald Trump from California's 2024 presidential primary ballot." Meanwhile, Senator Dave Min, also a Democrat, announced that he would introduce a measure to allow residents of the state to file lawsuits to block candidates who are deemed ineligible.
Top Biden administration officials are in Mexico today seeking the country's support in tackling the border crisis. This comes as two Democratic mayors speak out against illegal crossings, with one of them calling on the government to deport illegal immigrants. NTD's Arian Pastor has a border update.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Homeland Security Chief Alejandro Mayorkas are in Mexico City on Wednesday. They're seeking the support of Mexico's President Andrés Manuel López Obrador in tackling the immigration crisis. The two are expected to bring up a number of requests, including moving migrants south, controlling the railways that are used by migrants to move north, and providing visas and other incentives for migrants to stay in Mexico. This comes as new footage this week shows migrants making fires and sleeping between train cars in Mexico. They often travel on top of the train to not get caught by Mexican authorities.
Mexican migration authorities get us off the buses. If we're about to reach the border, we're returned to southern Mexico for no apparent reason. How are we supposed to move forward? We have to get on the train.
However, sometimes Mexican authorities don't stop the migrants, an issue the American delegation might address at Wednesday's meeting. Shortly before the meeting, President Obrador said the U.S. should be investing in poor people in Latin America and the Caribbean, instead of putting up barriers, barbed wire fences in the river, or thinking about building walls. Meanwhile, in the U.S., the Democratic mayor of Eagle Pass, Texas, says the U.S. should start deporting people, adding that the problem starts with President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris not taking a stand on the issue.
It's very disappointing that they haven't made that message themselves, that you can't come into this country illegally, one. And second, yes, of course, there has to be a consequence to somebody breaking the law. People know that they're processing them quick. That's why they keep coming. So until we start deporting people in large amounts, this will continue to keep going.
He adds that the influx of immigrants is causing crime in his city to rise. New York City Mayor Eric Adams on Tuesday suggested not allowing illegal immigrants to work could result in an increase in crime in the future.
If you have someone 4 or 5 months and said you cannot work, you cannot feed your family, you cannot provide for yourself, what happens? Lack of opportunities, an idle mind, is the devil's workshop, as they say.
He added that it may soon come to the point where illegal immigration affects everyday New Yorkers. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
Israeli forces released a recorded phone call that alleges that Hamas controls United Nations relief efforts in Gaza. Meanwhile, Hamas released a video that secretly recorded Israeli troops before an unexpected turn of events. NTD's Jason Perry has the latest on the Israel-Hamas war and a warning. This report contains footage that some viewers may find disturbing.
More than disturbing. It's more than disturbing.
On Wednesday, Hamas terrorists released a video of what appears to be Israeli troops recovering the body of a deceased soldier while other troops were standing guard. A terrorist inside a residence then throws a grenade at them and opens fire. Hamas also released footage of another terrorist inside a residence, firing an explosive at an apparent Israeli tank. Hamas terrorists not only control the Gaza Strip, but according to a recorded phone call released by the IDF on Wednesday, Hamas also controls the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, or UNRWA. In the phone call, a Gazan resident explains that from the day Hamas rose to power, they took control of everything.
حماس حاطه ايدها على كل حاجه عشان تبقوا انتوا فاهمين. حماس حاطه ايدها على موظفين الوكاله وهم القيادات في رئاسه الوكاله.
After such a significant statement, the IDF officer asked him to clarify what he meant.
كمان عم يتعاملوا مع حماس. سيدي موظفين الوكاله هم حماس.
And when it comes to humanitarian aid, he said Hamas provides it to their own people first. We reached out to UNRWA for comment, but we didn't get a response before airtime. Meanwhile, Hamas security escorted this convoy of trucks carrying humanitarian aid, including fuel, as it made its entry into the Gaza Strip from Egypt on Wednesday. Israel's government spokesperson Eilon Levy said this on Wednesday.
UN agencies are currently struggling to distribute aid at the pace that Israel is inspecting it. Unfortunately, to date, the UN aid mechanism in Gaza has been woefully unsuccessful because it goes through UNRWA. Aid simply isn't reaching the people who need it because Hamas hijacks it and UNRWA covers up for it.
He also gave this warning about Hezbollah's continued attacks across Israel's northern border.
We are now at a fork in the road. Either Hezbollah backs off from the Israeli border, in line with UN Resolution 1701 from 2006, or we will push it away ourselves.
Levy's comments come just a day after Hezbollah terrorists in Lebanon fired an anti-tank missile at a church in northern Israel. The attack injured 2 Israeli Christians, according to the IDF. Then, when Israeli troops responded to the injured, Hezbollah fired another missile at the church, injuring 9 Israeli soldiers. Just after the attack on Tuesday, the IDF spokesperson accused Hezbollah of trying to drag Lebanon into the war Hamas had started. He said that if the attacks continue, Hezbollah will bear the consequences and responsibility of an unnecessary war, and it could bring unwanted destruction to the people of Lebanon. Jason Perry, NTD News.
Damascus is going to be flattened. It's in
Shipping
the
operations
Bible.
in the Red Sea have finally resumed, but some companies remain skeptical. That's despite a U.S.-led international military effort that's working to protect the region from attacks by Houthis in Yemen.
So many
Danish shipping giant Maersk has announced that it's returning to the Suez Canal and the Red Sea. But some other shipping companies, like Hapag-Lloyd, are abandoning operations there. The German firm says that the region is too dangerous and that it will transit through the Cape of Good Hope instead. Since the October 7th attack, the Iran-backed Houthis have been showing solidarity with Hamas terrorists. The group has ramped up missile attacks on cargo ships they believe are heading for Israel. Relentless drone strikes force ships to stay out of the region, causing oil and gas prices to go up. Tensions over the Israel-Hamas war playing out right here in the U.S. Dozens of pro-Palestinian protesters were arrested after blocking traffic to JFK Airport in New York today. Joining us now to explore the pro-Palestinian protests and the rise in anti-Semitism, we have Dov Hikind. He's a former Democratic New York Supplement and founder of Americans Against Anti-Semitism. Dov, thanks so much for joining us.
And
my pleasure.
This. And there are better alternatives of finding out what's going on there. But they need to stop these wars. This is the whole thing. I think this guy I was listening to earlier, he is saying, they need to end these wars. I mean, I'm sure that all the kids want it ended, parents, especially like they were saying that they're housing people from Mexico. They're trying to get them to fight over in the Ukraine and over in I guess, I don't know where, but it's like, please subscribe. Please subscribe. I'll try and get you some better news. Let me just go and hunt this one down because it's not that big of a deal. I am going to go to find that news there. So, let's see.
Right now on Morning News Now, we're watching escalating violence in the Middle East. U.S. defense officials telling NBC News Iranian-backed militants have fired rockets at U.S. and allied forces in Syria. And that was just hours after the U.S. launched an attack against militants in Iraq. That came as retaliation for a drone strike that injured a handful of U.S. troops. We'll bring you the latest on the increasing tensions. And back home, the holiday travel rush kicking into high gear. But Mother Nature is tapping the brakes for millions of Americans' plans, with hundreds of delays already reported this morning. We've got our eye on a massive storm that's barreling up the East Coast. What you need to know as you start your day. Some shocking news out of South Korea this morning. An actor from the Oscar-winning film Parasite found dead. What we know about his untimely passing. And we're going to end the hour with a look back at some of the biggest moments in sports from 2023. A lot going on. Thanks for being here. I'm Stephen Romo in for Joe and Savannah today. And we start things off this morning with concerning new violence in the Middle East. This morning, Iranian-backed militant groups are ramping up their attacks as a show of solidarity with Hamas. Two U.S. defense officials tell NBC News militants in Syria fired a series of rockets yesterday targeting U.S. and allied forces at a base there. There ended up being no injuries or damage reported from that attack. Meanwhile, Yemen's Houthi rebels are continuing their assaults in the Red Sea. U.S. forces there report shooting down attack drones, ballistic and cruise missiles that were headed for targets in that crucial shipping channel. And it all comes just hours after the U.S. launched a series of retaliatory airstrikes on Iranian-backed militant groups in Iraq. Officials say the strikes came after U.S. service members were injured by a drone attack on their base. NBC News White House correspondent Monica Alba joins us now with more. So, Monica, what do we know about the impact of those retaliatory strikes that the U.S. ended up launching?
Well, we have seen this happen time and time again, Stephen. This is really a policy of the United States, of President Biden, that if U.S. personnel are targeted in the way that these were, where we did see those strikes that did injure 3 U.S. service members, one critically at the time. That person is now stable, we understand, but that the U.S. then decides that it can respond and carry out that response in the manner and timing of its choosing. And so those strikes that we did see in retaliation were targeted to 3 facilities where we do know these Iranian-backed militant groups operate from. And so the U.S. and defense officials believe that that was successful in terms of eliminating some of the threat there and really targeting some of the key infrastructure that makes these kinds of strikes possible. Now, what's significant here is really the timing of all of this and how quickly this response came, because sometimes you see some provocations and then there are days in difference before you see any kind of a response. But this one was really carried out quite swiftly, again, because specifically U.S. personnel were targeted and injured, Stephen.
And Monica, it feels like just so much going on here. We've got the Houthi militants targeting ships in Yemen and U.S. forces and allies getting attacked at that base in Syria. It's worrying, to say the least, and adding to this already difficult situation. So how is the Biden administration responding here? And is there any insight on how this could continue to play out?
Exactly. We're talking about these different groups. We're talking about these different strikes. But this is not happening in a vacuum, and a lot of it, of course, is connected, according to these groups, to what is happening with the war between Israel and Hamas. And some of these Iranian-backed groups say specifically they're targeting the U.S. because the U.S. has pledged its support and military support to Israel in that fight against Hamas. So we know that Secretary Lloyd Austin put out a statement yesterday warning specifically about how this could inflame the region and how this could lead to a possibly wider conflict, which is what the U.S. is really trying to avoid. So he did emphasize here, saying, let me be clear, the president and I will not hesitate to take necessary action to defend the United States, our troops, and our interests. There is no higher priority. And again, the reason this is significant is because we have now seen more than 100 attacks on U.S. troops and really on their bases since the start of the Israel-Hamas war. Since mid-October, you have seen 49 of those in Iraq, 56 in Syria, again, targeting those U.S. forces. And that is what is so concerning here to the president and the Biden administration. Stephen.
Certainly a lot to keep our eye on. And we've heard many times now Israel not likely to change unless more pressure comes from the outside. And on that front, we understand that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, his most senior advisors, met with White House and State Department officials in Washington. Yesterday, Israeli military leaders signaled that they expect the war to go on for many months. Separately from that meeting, do we know what ended up coming out of those talks, and if that meeting itself could be a signal of some growing impatience for the White House and how Israel is conducting operations in Gaza?
Well, it is certainly a continuation in this pattern of these close talks that we have seen between U.S. and Israeli officials. This was a key minister in terms of strategic affairs, Ron Dermer, who came to Washington. He met with Secretary Blinken. He met with National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan. And we understand that they really discussed a couple of things. Number one, they did discuss how they would like to see Israel ideally move its high-intensity operation into one that is now more specifically targeting Hamas leaders. Secondly, they also discussed, of course, the humanitarian crisis and how really the care of civilians is something that the U.S. is really pushing for. And then finally, Stephen, they also touched on, of course, the remaining hostages in Gaza and doing everything possible to try to see if there can be another pause in fighting to see if they can get any of them home. Stephen.
Yeah, and the Biden administration hearing a lot from Americans on that front as well. Monica Alba, thanks so much. And NBC News military analyst and Medal of Honor recipient Colonel Jack Jacobs joins us now for a closer look at this. Thanks for being here, Colonel. So Israel signaling it's not slowing down here. There's a new push in the war expanding into the refugee camps in central Gaza. What does that show us about Israel's mindset moving forward?
Well, Israel's got a number of missions here, and you could look at them as being mutually exclusive. It's got to defeat Hamas, that's its stated goal, and its primary goal, get hostages back, minimize Israeli casualties, minimize civilian casualties, do it all very, very quickly, and continue to engender the support of the United States and its allies. Like I said, these things are mutually exclusive. It's going to be extremely difficult for all these things to occur. And in the end, the likelihood is that they will continue the attacks. They will take a long time. There'll be a lot of Israeli and civilian casualties. And support for Israel's mission there will erode over time. This means that, ultimately, it's possible that there'll be some sort of negotiated settlement because neither Hamas nor Israel nor the United States support will continue forever, Stephen.
And on that issue of the United States involvement, there's more fear than ever of the U.S. being pulled in. These militant groups backed by Iran in Lebanon, Syria, and Iraq, along with the Houthi rebels over in Yemen. They're escalating their attacks, as we were just discussing with Monica there. So how big of a concern should this be for the U.S. and its involvement?
Well, it's a big concern if you listen to the leadership in the United States, both the President of the United States and Secretary Austin. They're very much concerned about being drawn directly into the fight more than they are now. We heard from Monica that there have been more than 100 attacks on American interests, American troops there. These things will continue because Iran does not itself want to get directly involved. And that's why it's using proxies. But the attacks will increase over time. And if, as and when, there is an American loss of life, you can expect that American retaliation will be swifter and, instead of being proportional as it has been till now, will be far more violent. The United States does not want to get involved in a war with Iran. Neither does Iran want to get involved in a war with the United States. But unless the United States administration shows some resolve, if American lives are lost, then there will be a loss of support among the American public for the National Command Authority here in the United States, Stephen.
A lot of moving parts here. Colonel Jack Jacobs, thanks so much for your insight this morning.
Thank you,
Sure.
Mr. Jake.
Well, there's tension not just in Gaza. Palestinians are reaching a breaking point in the West Bank as well. They say Israeli settlers have ramped up their efforts to push Palestinians out of their homes since the war started. NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel has a look at that side of the war.
The tiny Palestinian village of Atwani is in the West Bank, where shepherds still tend their flocks in scenes unchanged for centuries. Sami Hourani, whose family has lived here for generations, told me since Hamas's October 7th massacre, Jewish settlers have become far more aggressive in their long campaign to drive Palestinians from this land.
And the idea is just to make your life so hard that you'll leave. To make the life unlivable, unsustainable, unsafe. Just at some point you will flew away from here.
Sami says the attackers come from Chabat Ma'on, a Jewish settlement built on occupied Palestinian land. The settlement is illegal under international and Israeli law.
Now they have more and more authority and more protection to do what they want.
That includes, he says, shooting at Palestinians.
So if you were shot right now, there would be no consequences? No consequences. No one would ask.
It didn't take long before we were noticed.
There's a Jeep coming toward us now.
He was dressed like an Israeli soldier, but had no name tag or rank.
You want us to leave?
Yes.
Okay.
What's the problem? Stop the camera. Get into the car now.
Okay.
Get into the car now. Leave it. Get into the car now.
He needs his
Get into the car now.
He needs his ID to go.
Yes. Get into the car now.
Okay. What do you think is going to happen now?
I really don't know. Anything can happen. Now we will see.
We left without further incident. Sami shared with us other videos appearing to show settlers attacking his neighbors. The Israeli government responded in a statement, saying in part it has zero tolerance for citizens taking the law into their own hands, and that most of the so-called settlers are law-abiding citizens.
The vast majority of violence that's committed by settlers goes absolutely undocumented, unaccounted for.
Eliana Boswell is a Jewish-American activist documenting violence against Palestinians in the West Bank.
Does the Israeli government support this movement?
Absolutely. I think it's essential to understand that the settler movement and the Israeli government are deeply enmeshed and intertwined.
The settlers are not hiding their goal of full Jewish control of the West Bank and Gaza Strip and believe October 7th was a turning point. Daniela Weiss is a leader of the settler movement.
We are not going to give sovereignty, national independence to Arabs in the Jewish land. I make it as clear as possible. Enough is enough. No patience, no forgiveness, no consideration. Out.
Deliberately expelling.
Well, I must say that's pretty brutal. That's pretty brutal. But, that's just stuff that happens. I mean, gosh. Anyway, I got to keep my my dauber up and quit thinking about all this. I mean, they had the Ukraine Prime Minister come over to Canada. He wanted more money in vehicles. Trudeau's giving him like millions. And he had nothing to do with any kind of a peace talk or no kinds of peace, just kill, kill, kill. He sounded worse than Adolf Hitler. And there needs to be these wars like this. These need to be just stopped. But it's got to be, it's going to have to be a divine intervention. That's what I think is going to happen, and it's my faith. I believe in peace with all men, no matter matter what color, creed, or it's like, I know that my hairdresser, I went down there and his father was there, and we talked, and he said all he had in Afghanistan, all he had is blood and oil. They had nothing. They had nothing. So and by the grace of God, I didn't go over to Kuwait, or I would have probably been in the what is it called? Anyway, but I think Russia was over there. The UK was over in Afghanistan. Pre-Gulf, that's what it's called. Pre-Gulf War. I got out. I would have been in there, and I would have been so I got out because of mental health problems. So there were people a lot worse than I was. I don't know. I guess you just have to pick yourself up and dust yourself off and come to the realization that you've got to have faith and just keep on going on, keep on keeping on. Anyway, I hope if you're for peace, subscribe to this channel, and we'll talk more about that, a way we can create peace. There is a way. A lot of people don't believe in that type of thing, but it doesn't matter. It's all been written down, so in books. So anyway, God bless, peace, and peace out. I didn't put my peace signal on today. That's where I'm missing. Anyway, sorry about all the problems about the stream, but yeah, and I was checking out that guy from David Foster's stream. He was talking about this guy, and he was supporting things and stuff like that. So anyway, so I pray for the veterans that have come back and got PTSD and injuries. Sometimes it's like something as an injury is something that you can't see. It's a unseen thing with mental health problems, and your situation and stuff. I mean, those people traveling up from Mexico and that, they come up here and then it's cold. What the hell are they going to do? You got to find some way to stay warm. Anyway, God bless, peace to everyone, and thank you, God, for another year in the stream.